Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the December 14th, Wednesday, 10 a.m. Criminal Justice meeting. Could we call to order?
Commission members Brown.
Present.
Carter. Harris. Herr. Rodriguez. Present. Vice Chairman Little.
Present.
Chair Vieira. We do not have a quorum.
With that, we can still stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, couldn't we? Yes. Thank you.
Put your right hand over your heart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Presentations. Since we don't have a quorum, we can't take any action or things, but we'll still consider the reports that are given by our departments. I do have a speaker card. If somebody's willing to turn in a speaker card, we will listen, but that we cannot take any type of action whatsoever or making suggestions until following meeting. So with that, let's get right into it. Mike.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Statistics I have are for the month of November for Lancaster Sheriff Station. Sorry, Randy, can you help me out, sir? Okay, so I apologize for that. For our burglary suppression team for the month of November, what I did this month instead was put an increase or decrease of how many numerical categories that we have. So as far as felony arrests, compared to the month of October and November, we had an increase of 4. We actually had 17 for the month of November. Search warrants, we also had an increase of 6, if you can see right there. Warrant arrest is 33 compared to the previous month of October. And as far as firearms recovered, we didn't have any firearms recovered by the burglary team in October, and we didn't have any in November. So they're going to continue to vigorously look for more in the month of December, and we know they're out there, but we haven't had any as of yet. Increase of recovery of property for the month of November, they actually had $32,000 of recovered stolen property, which was an increase of $23,500 from the previous month. So we're very proud of their activity, of course, with those increases. The next slide we have was of the Lancaster team, also reflecting the numbers of increase. Felony arrest jumped by 48. Misdemeanor arrest also increased by 12, which made a total arrest of 60 for the entire month of November. Our narcotics team also has significant increases. Felony arrests, they had 2 in November, and they also had 2 in October, so it was a 0 increase for them. Methamphetamine in grams that was recovered was plus almost 370 grams. Marijuana was almost 2 grams increase. They conducted 3 search warrants in the month of November, which was 1 more than the month of October, which they had 2, and also they didn't have any recovery of firearms. One of the other things I wanted to discuss today was our crime prevention activity, which is on the next slide. We've had a very, very positive response from the community on our social media. We initially, at the beginning of the quarter in September, we had about 6,000 followers on our Facebook As of last week, we have over 13,000 followers. So we saw that as an opportunity to focus a lot of our crime prevention information that we share with the public through social media, through our Nixle, our Facebook, and our Twitter, and our webpage. So the things that we focus on the previous 4 months is we gave the public holiday shopping tips on being aware of your surroundings, making sure if you put items in your vehicle that there aren't electronic items that someone can see through a window of a car and smash your window and steal those items. We had a lot of support. We partnered with the city of Lancaster. We did radio advertisements also on local channels, and they were very helpful with getting us helping us get that information disseminated to the general public. We've had a lot of positive feedback with that. Also with elderly scams, we went to different senior citizen centers. Not only did we promote these tips on social media, but we physically went to a lot of senior centers and spoke to them whenever they had their forums and gave them a heads up of some of the scams that are out there. Like, for example, someone claiming to be the IRS, someone claiming to be the sheriff's department, saying that there's a warrant for their arrest, or someone pretending to be a grandson or granddaughter saying they're in jail and they need money transferred immediately. So we made them aware of these continuous attempts of crimes. We don't have any data to exactly know how many victims we have of these types, but we do know that a lot of people have been complaining in our local area that they've been receiving these types of phone calls. Anyone here, I'm sure, maybe received a phone call from the IRS. So we gave them tips of prevention of reality is IRS or any legitimate agency is not going to call them directly to request to transfer money. We're not going to ask for people's social security numbers or bank accounts. So those are some of the tips that we went over and let the elderly know. Online shopping safety was also another thing. I'm sure we've seen on the news on when the packages are delivered to homes. One of the things that we recommend is having when you order something online, not only go through a legitimate business, but making sure that those packages are delivered to maybe your place of employment, maybe to a neighbor who's home regularly during those normal hours when they're delivered, or have it delivered directly to a store that you can go for pickup instead of having it delivered to your house. And then burglary prevention, again, is one of the other topics that we went through. Every week we sent out a message on social media regarding that. So that's part of our crime prevention campaign, and we've had a lot of success with that. A lot of good feedback from our communities on social media. Other events that we have going in the future that we want to highlight is tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the Growing Valley Baptist Church. We're going to have our quarterly report, which is going to be shared with the public, as well as our engagement with our community advisory committee. They're going to have like an open forum with the public to get any sort of information that they want to share, talk about the progress report of our DOJ oversight, as well as just get feedback from the public. And like I said, it's an open forum. It's going to be tomorrow, again, like I said, at 6 p.m. at Growing Valley Baptist Church on 20th Street West in Lancaster. A couple other things that we've done also is we've done monthly coffee with the deputy meetings here on Lancaster Boulevard. Traditionally, it's been at Lemon Leaf. We've had an outpouring of support from the public coming to that. Again, we talk about topics of crime prevention, quality of life type issues that anyone in the general public could come and discuss and talk to a deputy about. And we get a lot of good information from that also. Some crimes have been solved with the input from the public that goes to that. We also do neighborhood watch meetings in partnership with the city of Lancaster. A couple other interactions that we have with the community is we currently have a toy drive where we're collecting toys, and we're going to distribute those to some local churches. We're going to distribute those to some of the kids that are probably going to be unfortunately stuck at the pediatric care during the holiday weekend. So I know that's always a bummer. So we're going to go visit them on Christmas Eve or near Christmas Eve to give them some toys and cheer up their holiday weekend, as well as we give some of those toys to victims of crimes that some of our detectives have nominated, or children who've been exposed to some type of crime. So we've been very, very active this month, as many other months, and we have a lot of outreach programs that we're very proud of and we've had a lot of success with. So we're looking forward to the future and getting involved and maintaining a good line of communication with all of the general public. Any questions that I can answer?
Have you had any time off, Mike? I see you everywhere.
My wife would say no. Yeah.
Because I know the hours you put in.
Yeah, somewhere in there I sleep. Yeah, sometimes standing up, but I sleep.
Well, we thank you.
I assure you I'm awake right now.
Thank you, sir. We
Thank you all
appreciate
very
everything you
much. I hope you all have a happy holiday season.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Mr. DeRico, sir.
You can obviously see why we're very happy to have Mike back.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, but,
Yes, sir.
yeah, Mike is a tireless worker.
Yes.
I just want to give you the LEAP's progress report, which you have a copy in front of you just to bring into the record. But the law enforcement aerial platform system, LEAPS, provides surveillance for Lancaster with aerial observation. During the November 2016, LASD formally logged 119 LEAPS service calls where tactical field operations were supported. LEAPS was dispatched 167 times for a total of 42.3 hours and was airborne and available for 302.9 hours during November for the total month. LEAPS provided airborne observation and support in the arrest of 11 suspects. Surveillance provided assistance in the recovery of 3 stolen vehicles. LEAPS provided aerial observation awareness supporting 3 containments. As you can see, so those are direct statistics for the month. You see on the right-hand side of your column that were directly involving the LEAPS aircraft. 11 arrests, 18 surveillance operations. So we've talked in the past that our detectives or Narcotics Bureau or the gang unit can use our aerial platform for surveillance as it relates to any operation they do. They were involved in 6 burglary issues, 4 persons with a gun, 3 stolen vehicles, and other suspicious circumstances type calls. So the station is utilizing this resource more and more. We're thinking of other ways to use it within the community, things we're talking about with as it relates to illegal dumping, or in the near future we're going to be doing another homeless count where we'll incorporate the LEAP system into it.
I'd like to go out of order here. I'd like to recognize Mr. Russ Williams and our Assemblyman Tom Lackey. Russ? Thank you, sir, Assemblyman Lackey, for being here. I know your schedule. So.
This is a privilege to come and join you as you address the issues that are very important to the community here. The state legislature can be a challenge when it comes to public safety, and it's an honor to go in there and try to advocate for sensible legislation that will try to enhance our safety instead of minimize some of the circumstances that we've created as voters. Recently, we can't blame the legislature for the passage of certain propositions. Proposition 47 was passed and has proven to be very problematic, in my opinion, on a number of fronts. And Prop 57 we just passed as a population, and I think it's also going to be very problematic. And so we need to be the front line to hold the line on all these attempts to weaken public safety. And so one of the things that my office is going to be very diligent on, and you may have seen some of the public information that we're already releasing on our first bill that we proposed, which is AB 6, and it has to do with drug driving. Drug driving is probably one of our greatest threats to our public. One of the most dangerous things you do every day is to get in your car and travel from place to place. Traffic kills more people than guns ever thought of killing. And so what we've done by passing another proposition, which made marijuana commercially available to people over 21, we're now going to probably see an increase, a significant increase, if we follow the pattern of other states, of impaired drivers. And so what this bill does is it gives law enforcement the tools they need to help identify those who are impaired by drugs. This particular, it's called the bodily fluids, or kind of like oral fluids. Oral fluid swab is what it is. It's you take a wand and you swirl it within your mouth for several seconds, and then it's put into a machine, and they can identify the presence of six commonly utilized drugs on the roadway, marijuana being one of them. And one of the things that we've seen in marijuana assessments and identifying information when it comes to the marijuana is THC levels not being a good indication of actual impairment, because they stay in the system for a long time. But this particular device identifies delta 9s in the THC, which is they're in there only for a certain period of time, a certain number of hours, and so it's a greater indication of recency of use. And so that's why we believe, and we presented this once before. This technology is not brand new. It's utilized by several countries, and several cities within California have already field tested this particular device. We want to have statewide implications so we can create a greater shield of protection for those who are driving from place to place. So we look forward to that particular measure being successful this time around. There's also another very big problem that has increased substantially by the retail industry. They've brought it to our attention that the shoplifting problem has become really, really crazy, because it's become organized, and it has become a big threat to the success of small businesses and large retail both. And the problem is, when we try to bring legislation to address a proposition, it has to go back to the people. And so that's a very lengthy process. And so it becomes very burdensome and very difficult to actually bring remedy to a very current problem. And so what we're trying to do is we're going to avoid making changes to Prop 47, so we've decided to add a few lines to the penal code. And what we're going to do is provide clarity to shoplifting and make sure that it's added to the list of conspiracy offenses. Because people are working together. It's become now an industry to actually steal from retail centers and to market these items immediately, especially with online availability. And we're also defining organized retail crime as, and I'll read it, conspiracy to commit a crime of larceny or embezzlement of retail merchandise with the intent of selling, trading, or otherwise re-entering such merchandise in commerce, and making sure that those are punishable by felony. We believe that will not require us to go back to the voters. We don't believe that directly impacts Prop 47 or the intent. We don't believe the intent of the people was to protect organized shoplifting. So we believe that by legal interpretation, we believe we're on good ground, and we're modeling these changes of other states that have done this successfully, defining organized retail crime. New York and Indiana have both done this, and Nevada is also looking at doing this very same thing. So that's basically the report, and we look forward to communicating with you about how this progresses. And we're always open to whatever you think we can do to partner in helping address all the threats to public safety here in the Antelope Valley. Thank you.
Any questions for Assemblyman?
I did have one question. I was curious on this opportunity to identify THC in the blood system and the delta 9, is that what you said, component to that. Now, in blood alcohol, there's a quantitative measure that is 0.08, beyond which you're presumed to be under the influence. Is such a standard available for the THC?
It's a really good question, and the answer is no. Nationwide, as a matter of fact, this is a problem nationwide, because marijuana is a very unique substance because of the nature and the way that THC impacts the reflexes has not been studied really, really carefully, and that's why we have a study that is actually part of legislation that I was able to get forward almost 2 years ago, but now the study is underway at UC San Diego, and it's specifically addressing this particular question on, first of all, there are a number of fellow legislators who don't believe that marijuana is impairing at all, and so we're defeating that ridiculous perspective, and they're going to show that there is a direct relationship to driving and certain levels of impairment. And they're also looking at not only just marijuana levels, and I don't know if we're going to be able to establish a per se limit from that study. We hope that may lead us toward that goal, But there's also the combination between marijuana and alcoholic beverages. We believe there's going to be a lot of mixing going on. And we want to see the interrelationship between those two substances and how they directly impact impaired driving. We believe the study is going to be done, and it's, as I said, it just started this last summer, and it's supposed to take 2 years. And so we're hoping that that's going to give us some very, very strong answers to the very question that you're bringing.
Along that line, and I'm sorry to get too far down one path, and maybe the Highway Patrol or the District Attorney's Office can join in on this. I thought there was some other technology that was being evaluated that might be able to actually measure impairment in an objective fashion, whether it's visual analog or whether it's some kind of testing that could be used on a driver to determine whether he's impaired. Do you know any of that?
No, right now what we're relying upon, and that's another part of the standard that this study that UC San Diego is, they're developing field sobriety tests that law enforcement will be able to administer, fairly simple ones, to specifically identify impairment as it relates to marijuana or a combination of marijuana and alcohol. And so we're relying more instead on machinery and technology to identify, because it's kind of a case-by-case basis from person to person. It's not a standard as alcohol impairment. And so there's going to be these field sobriety tests, of course, coupled with the driving, and then the confirmation with this other device that the presence of the substance, that they could be able to make an objective determination.
Thank you very much for coming in and giving us this presentation. And as the chairman of the emergency department, I certainly can agree with you that although we hear a lot about guns, motor vehicles are hands down what has our trauma service busy. So thanks for that.
Well, thank you.
Assemblyman Lackey, thank you so much for being here, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure. California Highway Patrol, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well.
See you last night. Good to see you last night too, and this morning
thank
too.
you for that. It was very nice. A lot of people. It was a good thing to see.
Very well deserved.
Yeah, so I just want to spin off on what the Assemblyman just addressed in regards to marijuana impairment. One of the challenges for us, obviously, is determining the combination of either alcohol and or drugs, which obviously has increased significantly, particularly as it relates to prescription. Our training doesn't allow, our current training that we have in our academy doesn't allow for an officer to be able to differentiate that. So we have, like many other agencies, drug recognition experts, which is a different course, requiring much more comprehensiveness, and so they can testify to the impairment. And we also have a new course that we're hoping to have all of our officers, and I think we've worked with the Sheriff's Department as well, which is another course that's not as arduous as the drug recognition course. So hopefully with that we can testify and get more prosecution until we get those studies done to get more prosecution on the cases. But that is going to be a challenge, and we are bracing for that. So anyway, I just want to give you some figures in regards to our November activity. Unfortunately, we did have 2 more fatalities in the Antelope Valley, so that brings our total to 24, which is double to what we had last year. As I've mentioned before in previous meetings, we do analyze the traffic collisions, determine if there's anything we can do, if there's a theme, if there's anything in particular with the division. It's very large jurisdiction, very difficult for us to pinpoint something, but unfortunately we do have tragically 24 overall in the year. For November, we had a total of 21 DUI arrests, and that should probably be a little higher this month with the holiday season, but hopefully our active patrol will minimize that. We've had over 1,300 enforcement contacts and almost 400 motor services in Antelope Valley. Our Chips for Kids program, you may have heard, that's going to continue until Wednesday of next week, and it's very successful so far. We have over 6,000 toys, so it's cluttering the office quite a bit, but it's a good thing for the community. And then one last thing, because we do get a lot of inquiries in regards to Bouquet Canyon, for those of you that commute back and forth. At one point initially, LA County Department of County Public Works decided to close the road. Now it's open, and they're going to intermittently open it and close it contingent on weather. So I think they're bracing for this weather, for this storm coming in. They're going to close it, I think, anytime soon. Unfortunately, we don't have advance notice. We get notification from them, and we put it on our social media, But I think LA County was probably a better resource to get that information when they are going to close it.
Thank you for answering that question at the very beginning. That was one of the questions I was going to have on how you're going to differentiate or what your officers have to do out there in the field from DUI to drug-related pullovers or whatever it may be. It's a whole training session in itself, I take it. Yeah.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Appreciate everything you do.
One last thing, and I was going to ask this also, Mr. Franklin and Assemblyman Lackey. Do you have to have a specific substance to be under the influence with respect to driving a motor vehicle, or is the statute general in the sense that if you're under the influence or impaired driving the vehicle, it's against the law?
My understanding is if you're under a drug, now it could be a legal drug or an illegal drug, but if the DRE expert indicates that you're under the influence of something, that would be sufficient. Obviously, by the very nature of that, you'd have a built-in defense that that the prosecution was unable to identify a particular substance, and that could be for a variety of reasons. They don't always test for everything. They're limited on the amount of tests that they do. But to answer your question, we could file, say they're under the influence of something based on the constricted pupils and the other indicia that they utilize.
It might be weak to try and successfully prosecute.
Correct.
Yeah, right now, you will see in LA County, the number of marijuana-only drug arrests, I would say you probably count on either hand. It's not happening. And the reason why is because there's so much controversy right now and there's so much ambiguity, you're innocent until proven guilty, which is a standard we should continue to support. However, proving the impairment levels and also showing a substance in relationship also to that impairment is a difficult challenge. And so when you go to court, usually the assessing officer needs to at least identify. The section doesn't require you to identify exactly what the substance is, but the court is another matter. And that's the next step down the road. Right now, what we're trying to do, and that's why this oral fluids is such an important piece, is we just want to remove these unsafe drivers from the roadway. The prosecution we would like to see happen because there's greater accountability, but at least we've removed these people from the roadway that are the current threat. These other steps are going to be goals that we're going to take some more time. We need these studies to actually show what those are. And when somebody does an assessment of someone and their impairment, what they have to identify is whether or not it's a stimulant or it's a combination between a stimulant and a depressant. And so there has to be some kind. You can't just say you're under the influence of something and we're going to test you and see what drug shows up. It doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, we have to be a little more certain when we're accusing somebody of that kind of an egregious crime. And right now, the certainty is difficult because we don't have all the tools available to us, and that's what this legislation is hopefully bringing us toward that end.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving forward, Jocelyn will. District Attorney, I'm sorry, Mr. Franklin. Done it again. I'm sorry, Mr. Franklin.
It's fine. My colleague is always welcome to speak in my stead.
Very much apologize, sir.
Just to follow up a little more, Commissioner Brown, for instance, we have a fatality that we're going to go on and prosecute, although it's a very low blood alcohol. It's like 0.02, but it was taken several hours after the incident, but there was that with a combination of marijuana. And we're just going to go forward and see what, there's clear that he was impaired. Now there's tremendous hurdles to get over, but I concur wholeheartedly with what the captain indicated about the fatalities related to vehicles as opposed to weapons, and what you had indicated as well. We have far, far too many fatalities up here that are caused by a vehicle, and far, far too many that are drug-related. So we'll continue to push that on a very aggressive basis. But it is, it's absolutely imperative, and I've had conversations with the assemblyman on it. They have to do controlled studies on marijuana, driving controlled studies. And then hopefully at some point they would come up with, look, if your nanogram level is X, you're per se considered under the influence, just like 0.08 in DUI. Your 0.08 alcohol, doesn't matter, you're presumed to be under the influence. So hopefully we can get to that with marijuana, if you have a certain amount of level, and then with this Delta 9 that the Assemblyman spoke of, but we do need to be very aggressive on that, in my opinion. As far as statistics, as filings go through, and this is for all of Antelope Valley, as I always indicate, so it's just not Lancaster, it combines Palmdale. For misdemeanors, we have filed through October 6,334 misdemeanors, which is the most actually in Region 1. So we continue to file those. We're working with Mr. DeRico to make sure that the proper restitution is allocated without having undue hardship on his personnel to come in and testify. So we do have a full-time paralegal that's working on that. As far as felonies, year-to-date, which again is, by year-to-date is through October, we filed 2,357 felonies, and we've declined 1,187. So we've reviewed about 2,400 felony cases. As far as some challenges, Prop 47 is still a challenge. The office is actually temporarily hiring more paralegals to assist in the anticipated influx of Prop 47 petitions. Prop 64, which is the marijuana initiative, we're still going through exactly what constitutes an infraction, misdemeanor. Some of these, when you are transporting marijuana, if it's in excess of an ounce, it sometimes goes to what we call a wobbler, which means you could prosecute it as a felony or a misdemeanor. We're still going through that. I do have a handout that I received from downtown that I'm going to pass out to my DAs, and I will also forward it to Jocelyn so that she has what we're working on. And Prop 57, of course, is a challenge. We try and look and see what the legislature has defined, just a handful of felonies that are considered to be violent. So we're doing what we can to work within those parameters, and if we can file a violent felony, we will, because that's very important for the amount of time that a particular defendant would be serving in custody. If it's what's considered a nonviolent, like residential burglary, attempted robbery, rape of an unconscious person, the legislature has deemed that those are certain types of arson. Those are not violent. They would be due potentially substantial less time. We're also under the gun right now with certain cases that were direct filed from juvenile to adult. Those are now, if they're still pending and have not been litigated where there's a verdict in a jury trial, they are now going back to juvenile to see if the juvenile is fit for rehabilitation So we would be suspending proceedings at the adult level. The cases would go to juvenile, and then a judge would make a determination if the individual is fit for rehabilitation. And if they are, then it stays in juvenile. If it's not, then it would come back to adult court, and we would handle it accordingly. So that's, I've got DAs working on that. I actually have a case that is going back. It's a murder case, and we'll see if the judge sends it back to adult or not. We are aggressive in our trials. We've tried through November 158 jury trials, which is the most in the county, even more than Compton. We are aggressive, and we push for just and proper sentences. So, barring any question, that would conclude my portion.
Commissioners, anyone? Dr. Brown, would you? No? Okay. Mr. Franklin, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Jocelyn.
Good morning, thank you. I don't really have anything today. I mentioned to you at the last meeting that I was interested in putting together just an informational presentation for the commission concerning some of our property maintenance and code enforcement cases and how the interplay between code enforcement and law enforcement and public safety really plays out in the real world. Talk about some of the challenges that all of those departments face in trying to resolve some of these issues. Lee and I are going to put together that presentation probably for the January meeting. I think at that point, too, we might touch briefly on some of the tools that are available to us to detect and prevent tragedies like the Oakland warehouse fire. There are tools available to us, so we'll touch on that as well. And that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. Mr. Drico.
Okay, so following along the track of all these rays of sunshine we've been discussing with legislation today, another issue has come to our attention and we're involved with. Recently, I've been involved with the Oversight Commission for Probation, and come to find out that as of December 31st of this year, the current contractor for probation for AB 109 for reentry, which is located over on Division, is closing. So we fought for probably 18 months when AB 109 came into effect to get a day reporting center provided up here in the Antelope Valley, because between the two cities of Lancaster and Palmdale, first of all, Lancaster being the highest and Palmdale being number 2 of the highest recipients of AB 109 participation and services, we didn't have a day reporting center. Now come to find out that probation has canceled their contract with the current provider, who's actually not a local provider anyway. So there's good and positive, good and bad things associated with that, and I'll get to that in a minute. So there'll be no reentry process or provider now currently in place after December 31st until a time where probation enters into a new RFP process. The big concern for that is that initially when we went through that first 18 months without a provider, the closest provider to provide services to help individuals who were released from incarceration to reentry into the community in some positive light, and especially as it relates to Prop 57 now, we didn't have that. The closest one was in the San Fernando Valley, and I'm afraid we're going to be in that situation for a period of time until some process takes place with the county to provide those services here. The good news is that the intent, as it's being related to us here at the city, is that the current intent is to use local community-based organizations to participate in that RFP process, so which is what initially we had asked for several years ago, to have local providers who actually have the networking within the community to provide those services. So we're going to go through a period, I think, that's going to be difficult, just based on what we contended with before, to a process that may potentially be good. And there's really no good side to this other than the fact that these folks are going to be in our community. It's better to have them incorporated in a positive way that gives them a potential not to recommit crime. And so that's the hope. So this has been very interesting because, as you know, there's been a large transition in the Department of Probation. They recently hired a new chief, which our understanding from Commander Benedict, he knows personally and has very positive things to say about this person. So hopefully there's going to be some shakeup within that department, and we'll see a more involved process from probation. And, it's not customary for the Sheriff's Department to maybe talk about another agency within the county, but, currently we're using a lot of city resources to do their job as far as AB 109 compliance. So our task force teams are being tasked with that as we speak, because the Sheriff's Department's assigned task force teams are only dealing with people that are absconders, those individuals that are not showing up at an address that they've provided that they will be released to. And that's well over 20% of all those persons involved in that program in the county's jurisdiction. So we'll see where that goes, and of course I will update the commission as that moves forward. But I do know for sure that Day Reporting Center is closing December 31st. Okay. I think, a lot of things we talk about here, and thank you, Assemblyman Lackey, for bringing to light, and we've talked about this in this meetings as it relates specifically how driving under the influence and marijuana, and actually Jocelyn and I have talked to the council about this in the past. There is no scientific method for evaluating impairment based on a level of THC in the blood. The other aspect for the law enforcement is what the captain brought up, and what Mr. Franken brought up is establishing that DRE component for testifying in court under Verdire and qualifying you as an expert for that. So you can honestly see there's a significant amount of training that's involved to reach that qualification. The other aspect of it is that there's no scientific method to develop what that impairment is. So depending on how you ingest, the method for ingestion, all those things come into play. Gestation periods, level of toxicity, all kinds of things come into this thing. So while I think it's, one of these things that we tried very hard to kind of educate the public on the potential issues related to that. I mean, I think the scary aspect of this is everywhere where this has been legalized, statistically you can see a rise in issues related to poisonings, traffic and accidents involving and fatalities related to drugs, all kinds of issues that I think we're going to be faced with in the very near future. So the expedience of these issues need to be addressed legislatively, because there needs to be a method for law enforcement to remove folks from the street that are driving vehicles that are the most dangerous thing we do every day. Some positive things. We've had a significant increase in requests for Neighborhood Watch throughout the community. Tracy and Christy have been very busy coordinating meetings. Mike has been amazing with their staff at the station with a real concerted effort focused on increasing the numbers of involvement of our community members in our crime-fighting efforts locally and being vigilant within the community to identify issues. And so, again, Mike talked about the social media aspect, which is I'm completely ignorant to, but I'm a believer because when it first came to me from our communications department. But the Cinemark and the radio ads, but the Cinemark especially is a very interesting phenomenon. And we change that every month, and the feedback we get from that is significant because how many people go to the theater? It's a perfect outreach, and I'd recommend it for any agency that wants to get a message. We're actually going to put something out as it relates to animal control over sometime in the next several months, and licensing and those issues. And that's been a very effective tool for us. Holiday Patrol has been really good, well received. The deputies have been out in the community. We've had very few incidents related with the shopping season that have been reported to us here at the city and problems. And then again, the local businesses are very happy with seeing the presence of the officers out there. And then what's been really good for us, we were able to hire 3 more parking enforcement folks. We were actually down to 1. So we have 4 now. But what's been nice about that is we've been able to re-implement a school safety program, drop off and pick up at the local schools on a rotational basis. That's been, I think, a very positive thing. So we're going to continue moving forward with that. And again, I think Jocelyn's idea for us to bring certain things to you in the next meeting about how we all intricately work together and network together on these issues. I think you're going to see some things that are going to be very encouraging coming from statistically in January that will be brought forward from the Sheriff's Department on how well all the agencies have worked to reducing crime in the community, especially for the last 6 months of the year. But I don't want to step on anyone's toes on that. But there's some very positive things that are going to come from that. And with that, I'm done.
Any questions? Thank you, Lee. Everything you do, thank you so much. At this time, we have some speaker cards, which will move forward. Maria Pisano. Remember that you're limited to 3 minutes.
Right, yeah. And I don't even know now if I can even, because of course always just listening to you talk always gets me so happy. Anyway, since I have to hear it on the phone quite often when I'm called, but I still know it's your voice. Anyway, I wanted to speak on last night at the council meeting. There was the new NB 1, which is about the bonds, and then about the CC4, which was creating of working groups about public nuisances and that, and then CC5, which was off-street parking requirements. But I want to talk about all this with the bonds of 2002, which has a lot to do with my vehicle and my things that were taken at a time. See, now I can't even, this is just great. I don't know why this happens all the time when I come up here like this. Because I have to sit through all this and I get upset and just thinking about things that have happened. And thank you for your report over there on Prop 47 and Prop 57. These are abuses that are happening, okay, with the leaps too. You deal with the leaps, just how, and the social networking, how everything works together to take your things and to work together to make you look bad. I know all you guys over there are grinning and laughing and thinking it's funny that I can't come up here and talk about it right now. But it's way out of control. I know that. You know, when you call the police and you ask them to help you because, you know, your child is missing or you've just been attacked or, you know, things like that, and they think that it's just a big joke and it's not funny at all and there's nothing you can do about it because they have people attack you and they have people come in and take your children and do things like that. And the stealing and all this, that, you know, through your expungements and all that, that it's okay to do these things. Since when have these things been okay to do these things? To come in and rob from you and steal from you and pretend like you're somebody that you're not and, you know, take your children from you so that they can work for you and sell your drugs for you and, you know, it's really a mess. I know, so it doesn't look like you really are cared, concerned. And like I said, and then having to get, you know, phone calls, what else you got, Maria, ha. You know, it's real funny, what else can we take from you? What else can we leave you out there in the middle of nowhere with no vehicle that there was no reason to take? The 2002 series, you know, was at $2.1 billion worth of social services that they can just come now with goods and services to make you take.
Mr. David Paul.
Mr. Vice Chairman and Commissioners, good morning. What a joy to come here, and I see we have some guests today that I saw last night, and it's exciting to have people participate and come and see how complex some of these issues are and how hard it is to solve them. When I want to feel better, I watch international news because the world is much worse off than our great country, but we have problems, but we have great people working on them, and that always heartens me. You know, I spoke here Monday night at the Tapestry Commission event on faith and community, and I talked about a Sunday show where a guy had a book about behavioral economics that studies quantitatively what the behavior is, you know, how, statistically instead of emotionally, and how people aren't really rational and how they tell themselves stories instead of facts. And to hear things like rape of an unconscious person and residential burglary aren't violent crimes, that's just crazy to me. And it's crazy to most people who understand that those things impact people severely. And so part of it is changing the narrative to just communicate to people what is actually going on. And a forum like this helps immeasurably. I want to see more people come in here and network, and I have some of my own ideas for the next year on how to bring people together. But our at-risk youth are worth saving. Our people in trouble are worth helping. And I sense the goodness and the warmth and the genuine concern. And I can't thank you all enough for tirelessly working on that, because you're the difference. You're really the difference between the wolf at the door and a higher quality of life that I enjoy in the city. And I see the effort and I appreciate it, and I could go on, but thank you very much for what you do, because it matters to me, it matters to my family, and it makes me happy to live here and know all of you and many of you as friends. So thank you very much. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and let's have a good New Year. Thank you.
Commissioner comments on anything? I'd like to just end of the year wish everyone a happy holiday. I want to thank our law enforcement, Mike, and your sheriff's department, the endless work that you do, the California Highway Patrol. Sir, thank you. Mr. Franklin, how you do it, I don't know, it's incredible. Just, thank you, because it's tireless work, and not a lot of thanks goes out at times, so Mr. Dorico, I see you get hammered quite a bit, but I've known you for X amount of years, and I have the highest up and most respect for you as what you do for the city and how you do it. Endless. Jocelyn, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And Assemblyman Lackey, thank you for always being, there for us. Our Vice Mayor, Mayor Chris, thank you. I see you, I've known you for X amount of years, and I don't know how you do it. The hours that you put in, and this and that and everything else. I appreciate everything you do. Mr. Rajmali, our councilman, thank you. You're involved in everything. Every time I turn around, you're out there. So thank you, sir. Mark Bozigian, our city manager, thank you. Appreciate it. Everything you do and how you keep sides together and communicate. I appreciate everything you do. So, Jason, same to you. You take my phone calls. Thank you, sir. I thank you. Anyways, with that, I just want to wish everyone happy holidays. Linda, thank you. So happy holidays, and look forward to next year. Meeting adjourned. January 11th, 2017. Good day.